Hello everyone and welcome to the Old School RuneScape live stream. I'm your host, Mods Ayiza, and today I'm joined by mods Elena, Husky and Kieren. Welcome everyone, how are you all doing?
Fantastic, thank you for asking. How are you?
Oh my god, the host got asked. I'm doing good, thank you. A little bit sleepy, but great to be here. I just got back off holiday, so feeling nice and refreshed. How are you doing, Elena?
I'm pretty good. I've got a bit of a tickle in my throat, so apologies if my voice just breaks through the stream. I hopefully will be able to manage throughout, but otherwise feeling good.
Getting to relive your teenage. Just gonna have to, I don't know, we'll just have a little chat between ourselves and find out. Okay. Chat, can you hear us?
Are we back?
We're so back.
Fixed, we are so back.
Thank God, we leaked the release date there. Thank God they
yeah, I know.
do it.
God, they'll have known about that special reward as well. Anyway, back to where we were. Yeah, you are in for a treat because this is the team working on sailing, and we're going to be talking about what's to come in regards to the last content poll, some of the changes that are going to be made, and everything else before the school launches in late autumn. So I just want to let you know that we are in the process of making some adjustments to the blog based on your feedback. We will go over some of those changes today, but there'll also be an updated blog that's going out very soon so that you can read them all as you please. But first of all, let's get through some announcements. First of all, exclamation mark game update. Hold on a second. I guess this is from last week, yeah, because technically we've still got a game update coming out tomorrow. I haven't done these streams in a while, so bear with. But if you want to see what happened in last week's game update, it's the rest of the Pol 85 changes. The bridge near the mausoleum can now be repaired to create a shortcut to Harmony Island Herb Patch. Sorry, to a shortcut to create a shortcut. I need a comma in here. Harmony Island Herb Patch now guarantees healthy herbs and more. There we go. Okay, exclamation mark blog. If you want to read up about sailing and what we've been working on, what is coming up in the latest poll, what we're going to be talking about today, maybe do it after the live stream so that you can focus on what we have to say at the moment. But from Frost Dragons, Slayer creatures to unique drops and more, get ready to vote in the final sailing poll before its launch. Exclamation mark blog for that one. And if you don't want to watch the if you don't want to read the blog and you'd rather watch things, exclamation mark video is what you want. We worked with No Monkey and Skritic to cover everything that you need to know about the latest poll before the launch. Fantastic video, really well put together. I hope you've all enjoyed watching that. If you have, make sure you give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. It helps us out a lot. Exclamation mark sailing Discord. Join us over on the dedicated sailing Discord for news on all things sailing. That is the best place to be in terms of sailing discussion outside of, you know, the likes of Reddit X and so on and so forth. But let's get straight into the questions. That's enough of me rambling announcements and doing a really bad job at them. So apparently I'm going to be starting off with the hardest question. Which sailing pet are you all going to be voting for? Let's start a poll in the chat. And what about the team? How do you feel about the sailing pets?
Do we sway the vote?
Yeah, I feel like we're going to affect it now.
What are we going to do? Who's going to arrest us, really? Like,
Kieren. Kieren's going to arrest us.
Well, technically it would be me, right? Because it's like,
look, if you go for the one I want,
the community.
I don't care.
Yeah, I'll start then. I'm like full on Team Turtle. I think like as much as like crabs are memes, I think the turtle stuff's been pretty iconic throughout all the sailing. I think there's some really cute stuff that can go with turtles. I think turtles are really cool. So yeah. Team Turtle.
He's giving big disappointment energy over that.
No. The turtle's really cute. You know, everyone's entitled to their opinion. That's the
Even
beauty
if
of opinions. We can
sometimes
all have them.
you
I
disagree.
just know that I don't want the seagull because we're also doing a griffin pet that we haven't shown off yet, but you've
Ooh.
seen what the griffins do look like, and they're kind of seagull-like. So you can draw your own conclusions there, you know. But yeah, anyone but that one, I would say.
What does fake Scotsman mean in chat in response to what I just said? Like, am I missing something about Scottish culture and the sailing pet options?
Do Scottish people not like turtles? Is that... What?
I don't know.
I'm also Team Turtle, not gonna lie.
Nice.
We're very crab-pilled on this game, and that's good. Crabs have a place. Gemstone crabs assert its dominance on the whole ecosystem around this game. But Turtle, how cool is that gonna be, man?
It would be really cool, and it does look awesome. I'm torn. I haven't decided yet. I'm torn between turtle and the claw crab, but I also really like the crab in the bowl. I think that's like a genius design. It's actually so clever, and also reminds me of a hermit crab that I found whilst I was away. I thought it was an empty shell. Put it in my pocket and then got a pinch on my leg. Realized it was not an empty shell, so I put him back safely. Okay.
Crab's
All
like,
right.
let me out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
I'm
say
like-
if it's gonna be the crab,
Sorry.
I want it to be the bottle crab.
Fair. Okay.
What
All
if,
right.
what if the crab supporters kind of line on which crab they want, you know?
Ooh. The crab conspiracy. I don't know. Right. I've also just want to address that, we have seen feedback asking for a ranked choice. Unfortunately, at the moment, our poll system can't currently do ranked choice voting, but we are looking to introduce quite a lot of improvements to our polling system in the future. We're not going to change the fundamentals of how polling works, so don't worry about that. It's still going to stay the exact same as it is with the pass percentage and all that kind of stuff, but we're looking to add a little bit more flexibility. That's something that I'm working on in terms of getting communications together so that explains everything to come with that. But at the moment, we can't do it. We are stuck with vote for one, and the highest vote option wins. We might be able to do like a runoff poll, for example, if some of the options are like just so close that it would warrant it. But typically, that's not been needed. We will see how things go, though. However, okay. Moving on to Gryphons. Have you considered making Gryphons do the? Oh my god. Okay, hold on 1 second. Reset.
Ayiza, you're a natural host. Come on, you've got this.
Yeah, well, it's fine. It's not, but it's okay. Have you considered making Gryphons drop the Tome of Air? It might fit thematically because of their gust attack.
Honestly, it does fit. Of course it fits thematically, but we also have loads of ideas for rewards. I know we want to do the Tome of Air at some point, and I know the community loves to finish offsets of things that we've indicated will come eventually. So it is a good chance for it, but it's a good chance for other things, and we really like the idea of introducing the sculling off hands thing and that being brought into the game as well. So at the end of the day, Tome of Air is still potentially in the future. We certainly wouldn't want to double dip and give the Griffin two things here in this way, but for now, that's what we're going with. So Tome of Air maybe sometime in the future, but not in this case.
Fair enough. Thank you for that. So what about Frost Dragons? Will they drop the Draconic Visage?
They
course they
will,
will.
yeah. They'll be
They're
in line
high-level
with other
dragons.
dragons. So get out of my head, Husky. Come on.
You two are so
No,
cute.
This has been
You
a
tell you've been
recurring
working
thing.
together for so long, so
Honestly,
much.
it's been a recurring thing through the entire project. We've just sort of our brains have merged into one. We keep like finishing each other's sentences or beating
Yeah.
each other to it. It's crazy.
Yeah,
As
I mean,
long
we
as
were
not beating each other up. It's fine.
messages in
That's
our
it.
private
No,
channels.
kidding.
Messages in our private channels have been crazy this week because we were like finding files that core boat creation code has its like 2-year anniversary like this Thursday and stuff. It's actually like kind of crazy how long you've been working together.
It's a bit nostalgic seeing old code and going like, huh, we assumed this would work this way back then, and it just totally doesn't anymore. There's a lot of things with working on this big project that we haven't really experienced before. I realize that's like a huge tangent from your original question, which was, will the Frost Dragons, drop the Visage? And yes, they will, in line with other dragons. Yeah, there's nothing more to say on that, really.
Cool. Well, what about Frost Dragons not being given the Slayer level? Why is that the case? And are you concerned that they could end up being crowded without a Slayer level requirement?
It's still going to require 87 sailing, which is a pretty damn high requirement. Like that's pretty significant compared to say 70 in any skill. I mean, we know how the XP curve works. They could be crowded. If they're crowded, that means that the activity is good and popular, and people want to grind them for the dragon sheets, which will be the big valuable thing to go for those. So I think in general, we just found that dragons as a whole don't tend to require a Slayer level. Brutal dragons are just this weird exception. And on top of that, throughout sailing, we didn't just want every single new creature to be like, here's a new Slayer creature. It's important to have new, interesting, high-level creatures that are not Slayer related and just sort of exist in the world. And these felt like a good example of something we can do for that. We know that Frost Dragons have been slightly nostalgic for some people. They were a piece of content that was known to be quite good for its prayer training. People sat there, to get good good bones for prayer out of that. So the new bones should hopefully accomplish that, and there's some additional stuff on there. Like I think there's sort of quite an uncommon drop to get some superior dragon bones from Frost Dragons too, just to bump that Slayer XP up a bit. So that'll also be a really cool way to get some anti-fires, like super anti-fires, without Doom Forecast. So yeah, hopefully they'll have enough sort of reasons to go for it. Yeah.
I quite like the fact that we're doing them because it's a familiar creature as well. Like, as in, we're introducing a lot of new stuff with sailing, but it's nice that we're also building on creatures that you're somewhat familiar with. Like, the dragons, and there's a new type of dragon.
Cool, nice. Interesting about the bones as well. I'm sure some people will be able to take advantage of that. Okay, what about Frost Dragons being considered a blue dragon instead of a new task on the list? Similar to how Blue Black Dragons and KBD are part of the Black Dragon task, and how Vorkath is already a blue dragon. What are your thoughts on that?
I saw this question and I kind of had to think. I'm like, are lava dragons considered like a black or a red dragon? Or are they like a weird hybrid of both? Because it currently doesn't count as one of those dragons on task. And we're kind of thinking that Frost Dragons as a whole are more like that kind of dragon group rather than the traditional colors. Obviously, King Black Dragon is literally a black dragon. Vorkath is literally a blue dragon, so those things make sense. But yeah, it was an interesting thought. But to me, I guess I wouldn't consider them to be blue dragons.
I think it seems a bit ridiculous to consider it a blue dragon. Like, just because ice happens to be a vaguely blue color, it's not a blue dragon in what it is. I don't know. Have we thought about how we're categorizing it? It's in the same category as lava dragons. I guess a new type of like elemental dragon. Is that how we're thinking about them?
I guess so, yeah.
Maybe like one day we had a couple more of these, and then you start doing elemental dragon tasks, and you group lava and frost and stuff like that. But right now, it doesn't seem worthwhile.
Yeah, we could definitely get there. Like, I know like frost isn't like a rune group, but like if you have like lava is definitely a very different elemental thing. Like, could we start going into the whole like what's a dust dragon, a mud dragon, all this kind of stuff?
Smoke dragon.
So I'm gonna just add in a question here. I saw it from chat. I thought it was actually quite good. Would there be a possibility of like having an elemental dragons task in the future if we were to continue adding, more elemental dragons?
I could see that happening, yeah, for sure.
I think that sounds reasonable. I think there is a whole Slayer sort of thing to unwind there. I don't want to tangent this too much, but obviously like you could categorize things to the point of being detrimental. I think the demon tasks, for example, gain a lot of benefit from being separated into a greater demon or black demons, and that gives you a bit of choice over, ooh, I'm going to go kill some demonic gorillas now, or ooh, I'm going to go kill tormented demons. Obviously, dragons are not at that point of, that sort of high-level interesting types of content. And rune dragons were mostly grouped because, quite honestly, you're probably never going to see a reason for bronze, iron, and steel to be relevant outside of lower levels. But obviously, like, people will go and farm the other three depending on what they want for various clogs or money, right? Even the Dragon Full Helm is a really expensive drop. Like, you might just be doing that Slayer task at the whatever chance of getting it just to make bank. So I think they have value, the other ones don't. So it just kind of made sense to group them because there was a lot of bloat. I mean, as you can even see, once you group all the weightings together, they actually occupied quite a large amount of the Slayer task list. And that's why for Frost Dragons specifically, with us adding it in, we're targeting a very low weighting for these. These are something that, for players who have 87 sailing, you know, they're only going to see them very rarely. And even then, at like I think it's 30 to 40 quantity.
Okay. Nice, thank you. Last question around Frost Dragons for now then is, will they have a crush weakness since they're icy, or a stab weakness because they're dragony?
So I think dragony. I think originally it was stab, but we quite like the idea of changing it to crush. So I think we agreed to do that. Is that right? I wasn't in the feedback meeting, but I believe we. Yeah. So
that's a change
it's
we're going
to
make.
be crush.
Any excuse to see people using the goofy crush anim on the Dragon Hunter lens.
It is kind of
amazing.
goofy, but I love it.
I mean, it could be fairly weak to both, right? Like, Slash should be the weakest, and then the other two be decent options, even if we lean to crush more.
Cool. All right. Let's move on then to Strykewyrms. Got a bunch of questions around those. Can you clarify the Strykewyrms tasks? They've been polled as a new unlockable Slayer task, but unlike Aquanites. That's right, isn't it? Aquanites. There we go. I can read. There is no unlock perk listed. There's only an extend perks on worms.
Yeah, that was a miscommunication in the blog, or potentially a copy-paste error that we just hadn't spotted, so apologies for that. Strykewyrm tasks are not going to be a thing that exists. You'll be able to kill them with your existing worm tasks, which means that any Slayer Master that assigns worms, you'll obviously be able to go kill them for that. We would add Lava Strykewyrms as a new area under Konar, so, you know, if it specifies go kill worms in the blah blah blah, it's going to be Lava Strykewyrms only, and obviously that will need the sailing level to unlock that. But as a result of potentially worm tasks being a bit more desirable, because currently they're kind of left to the wayside of, you know, having, like, it's not even that they're necessarily bad loot or bad XP, it's just that killing them's really annoying with them changing states. So we're going to look to offer an extension for that. So potentially if you get them aside from Duradel and you're like, yeah, I really want to weave in some Lava Strykewyrms to my grind, you'll be able to extend them. And then that whole, like, there's a later follow-up question, but I might as well answer it now. That's about, like, you know, why don't they burrow and stuff? It's mostly because those are just always frustrating mechanics to deal with. Who enjoys killing Shades and Shades of Morton and needing to spawn it and then click it again and nop it again? And who enjoys, you know, worms where they do that whole transform animation change and needing to attack them again? So that's why the Lava Strykewyrm's not going to be burrowed. So hopefully that's just a case where we've just said this is a really annoying gameplay mechanic, and, you know, let's streamline that a little bit. So yeah.
Nice. Well, the 3 people in chat that said that they enjoy it are not going to be happy with that, but I'm pretty sure everyone else will be. So thank you for clarifying.
They'll still have the option to kill the regular worms if that's one of their favorite NPCs.
Yeah, I killed so many regular worms to get bones for my hardcore Iron Man, and oh man, it brings back terrible memories. Okay. Enough reminiscing on the past. Strykewyrms and Frost Dragons only seem to drop unique bones. Is there any reason why we didn't give them a more special or fancy item outside of the bones?
So they do drop the dragon sheets as well, which we do talk about in the blog a bit, and they're really useful for like as high level sailing upgrades. So it will be used in various things on your boat to upgrade it and build fancy facilities and stuff like that. Other than that, we are doing some bits with the drop tables, like Husky mentioned earlier. We're adding some like superior dragon bones to the Frost Dragon drop table, and just spicing them up a bit, making them a bit more interesting.
There's also some new sailing stuff that obviously players aren't thinking about that will be included on their drop tables. Like some high-level creatures in general will have access to some of the new higher cannonballs. So there will be reasons to kill them. They just might not be necessarily as apparent right now. Sailing's quite a big, complex project that even internally it could be hard to follow everything, you know, when it's this big, let alone when players see a snippet into that with, you know, a preview of that when we'd release blogs.
Nice, thank you. Oh, sorry, you were going to go, Kieren?
I was going to say, the game's full of creatures that don't drop not everything has to have something incredibly special. I think it's cool that the Dragon Sheet can come across multiple sources and who knows? Maybe there'll be more in future, right? Like, who knows what we add later in the line? Maybe we will add a unique to some of these creatures, but the game's full of stuff that doesn't drop anything unique, and it's good to fill out the game in that way. I don't want to overly bloat this launch by insisting that every single creature has a total unique added to it. Doesn't make sense.
Fair points all round. Lastly, then, can you talk a little bit more about the visual effects of Strykewyrms? I saw quite a bit of commentary around them, in particular things around the burrow mechanic and little bits like that. Just anything that you have to share on what we've shared so far.
Yeah, we should have had a disclaimer on the video that visuals weren't final. I think we normally do that, and it just kind of got missed in our reviews of it. But we just haven't had that animation ticket be finished yet for them to have the effect. So I don't quite know fully what that's going to look like. Obviously, the artists have some description and are going to be working through that. But I'd imagine that would look like sort of like the ground is like shaking beneath them, or like some amount of rubble's being kicked up, or something of that effect. They obviously look very goofy just sliding along the ground right now, but we do intend to make it feel like they're, half of them is underneath the ground.
Awesome. Okay, all right. The Aquanite Hopper. Can you clarify whether the second bolt on the hopper is reduced to 60% damage accuracy and enchanted bolt chance, or reduced by 67% damage accuracy and enchanted bolt chance?
Damage divided by 3, accuracy divided by 3. So it's 33% of the damage and accuracy, reduced by 67%. Hopefully that makes it clear. So things like the Ruby Bolt effect, when it triggers from the hopper, will hit a 33 instead of a 100, that kind of thing.
So it's divide by 3 as well. So it's not actually, it's 33.3333%, right? Not
Yes.
exactly 33. Okay.
But like damage truncates in our game anyway, right? We just chop off the decimal.
The rounding situations in this game have thrown me off for so many, so long. It's like, oh, does it round down? Does it round up? And it's different, I feel like, in different places too.
Yeah, it should be
Always
quite an
down,
interesting.
unless we specifically tell it otherwise.
It should be quite an interesting item. Obviously, crossbows are something players have asked for us to provide a bit of love to. I've seen the numbers on this, and I think the numbers have been quite confusing. Obviously, players are probably going to run simulations now. We've clarified that, but in general, the purpose is that this is still going to be a good bit below Buckler, because we don't want to creep on a raids unique. If we're getting close to Buckler, like that's a problem, right? That's a very strong item to go get. It holds a good place for people to own it alongside a Zarek crossbow. But really, there's just not a lot for ranged offhands. Dragonfire Ward is like that weird one, but it's like also very specifically like the best offhand when you're fighting dragons, but not using like super antis and all that kind of stuff. So in general, it's going to be higher DPS than the ward, apart from weird niche cases where the defense starts to get quite high, in which case the ward might just edge out on stats. But then you might also be able to offset that by using diamond bolts, because they'll pierce defense. So it's a weird one to calc out depending on the bolts, the defense of the creature and stuff. But it will just be the best, highest range DPS offhand for using crossbows. But the problem is that that still won't really make crossbows super relevant. Like, even if you just gave all the mid-game irons a twisted buckler, they're probably still not going to use a crossbow over places that they would use things like a bowfowl or like other ranged options that are available to them. So it's in that position where hopefully it's just sort of there as like a mid-game option. It might just be the best thing for you to use if things are particularly heavy ranged weak, which obviously is something that we plan to explore just generally as the game moves forward, now that that's a thing that exists. So yeah, it definitely is an interesting item, but ultimately, like, if it doesn't land where it lands, we know what our goals are. We want this thing to be the not quite a buckler, but the best offhand. If it doesn't land there, then that's where we would be looking to change it in review, right? That's what we're trying to portray at this poll stage, where we're pitching a reward idea.
I think what you said there about it being like a mid-level upgrade was kind of where we made a bit of a mistake, I guess, with the blog. Like, we've talked about it since, and we want to lower the Slayer requirement on Aquanites down to 78, just so that it fits more it feels a bit more mid-level, right? Because the way I think about it, you either go the raids route where you grind out the buckler, or you grind Slayer and you get this one.
Yeah, it's probably not too dissimilar at power levels of like things like a whip or a trident, which aren't particularly meta, but there are strong upgrades for PVM. So I think 86 wasn't super out of place, but the sailing requirement is still something to consider. And even if we ignore like how much Slayer level is required for a certain amount of power, like a little bit, Slayer just feels like it's got this really strong dry patch between like say like 70 to like 80 to like mid 80s. Like there's just that weird bit where you're happy to get Necreals. Some accounts might be happy to get Gargoyles just because the increased in Alks, but even they're not technically efficient anymore because they're not a barrageable task. So yeah, hopefully 78 just sits it there as that task that's just before Necreals where, ooh, I've done sailing, I'm interested to try out the new creature, see what drops. Obviously it's going to have a superior, so that will be like all of them will have superiors, right? The Strykewyrms and the Gryphons and the Aquanite. So hopefully that'll just be more chances for accounts in general to have a hit at the Imbued Heart. That's all. Like any task that's superior is automatically just feeling more exciting, right? For any account. So yeah.
Nice. Well, I did have a bunch of extra questions, but you kind of answered them mostly with those responses. So thank you so much for that. I just quickly add in then, is the intention for the Hopper to work in PvP?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
But hopefully the concerns about the damage kind of alleviate that a little bit, that it is 33% effective. And also the fact that you can't proc 2 enchanted bolts at once. It's not, we're not looking at like double Dragonfire attacks in the same tick.
Hey, that would be kind of insane though, right? Imagine just one-shotting someone with Dragonfire.
The same
Very
tick
cool.
their anti-fire protection fell off. You just get proc and kill them.
Tell you what, it is so satisfying when you hit like a really big Dragonfire hit in PvP though, when there's someone's not got their anti-fire on at all. There's just something about that sound that comes in. It's like, oh, you just know it's going to be good. Okay, Horn of Plenty. What was the rationale in terms of design, making it charged with feathers, especially as, like, let's face it, the community isn't a super big fan of items that have an upkeep cost at best of times. So keen to understand a little bit more in terms of what your thought was behind that.
It's always a difficult one because the community is a fan of Slayer creatures that drop valuable stuff. And that's what the Griffin feathers will be, right? Like if people need Griffin feathers, they will pay for them. And so you doing your task and picking up those feathers and selling them will make you money. But the way of doing that is we need like to consume the feathers as well, right? So it's a difficult one. I think usually the reason people don't like consumables is because but sometimes we get the ratio wrong of how much time you spend actually like gathering what you need. So think about like doing Zulrah to get Zulrah scales. You spend a lot of time killing the boss just to get those scales, and then you spend some time using the blowpipe or your trident. But maybe that ratio isn't quite right. Like maybe you feel like you need to kill the boss needlessly only to maintain those weapons, right? So I think if balanced correctly, it will feel a lot better. And in this case, hopefully we'll get that right, but time will tell.
I think it's a pretty different situation between something that buffs your hunter output and something that you use for PVM forever.
Yes.
Now, I get that this has a root to that, in that Chin Chompers are going to be the big thing that probably benefits from this a lot. But Chin Chompers do not see the same level of widespread use in PVM that something like the Scythe does, right? And so the level of upkeep, the amount you just... If you get 99 Slayer and you get a bunch of these on the way, you'll probably get quite a lot stored up passively, and hopefully sits in a nice spot as well. I think it's something we'll keep an eye on, right? Because we do have rates to balance here and so on, and we'll see how it goes on launch. We want them to sit in a reasonable spot economically, but also not be abhorrent and annoying for Iron Man. To be honest, I put it in a similar category to the Spirit Flicks, right? They buff your fishing output. This buffs hunter output. Yeah, they're delivered in a slightly different way, but I don't think we have we don't have the same situation with like Temperos and we don't have loads of people complaining that I have to go back to Temperos every time in the same upkeep way. So we want it to sit in a reasonable spot. I'm conscious of not adding blow and overhead to doing every skill in the game. That feels annoying. So hoping it nails that sweet spot, basically.
We were also talking about like how the Horn of Plenty can be useful even if it's not charged. So what we'd like to do is add a +2 invisible hunter boost to it, so that as long as you wear it, you still get that boost, and like you might have a higher likelihood of catching something. and that will be useful regardless of you charging it with the feathers or not.
Nice. I saw that come up quite a bit in feedback, and I think the comparison being used was the Celestial Ring, I think it is, from Stardust, Falling Stars, Shooting Stars. There we go.
I also think everybody's thinking about it in terms of chinchompas, which makes sense. They're the highest profit thing you can hunt currently in the game, but sailing is introducing some new hunter activities too, so maybe there's other applications with sailing that will also be profitable or competing with chinchompas in certain ways. So that'll be something that'll be interesting to see. Obviously, time will tell. Stock markets are difficult to manage, right? And you'll see where things settle out, but I think that'll be interesting on launch to see, if some of these hunter activities like rainbow crabs are really lucrative. Like the early horns could be really expensive to increase that output.
Cool, thank you. So what about getting multiple catches with a Horn of Plenty? If say you're at, chins, will it give you multiple rolls of the pet as well? Does this extra roll count towards the pet roll?
No. Generally, we don't want this to affect other things. So like, I'm gonna jump ahead a bit, but I think you talked about like impling catches as well, and the
Herbivore.
yes,
Yeah.
and that I was thinking about the hunter rumors because there's a lot of these questions where it's like, does it cover this? Does it cover that? The answer is generally no. We don't want them to be doing that. If you feel strongly about it, let us know. But as like a baseline, we're gonna start there.
Awesome. I think that's fair because like once it's in game, people have got a chance to use it. It's not like we're closed to feedback. We'll always look to make changes based on that, and it could be a future quality of life poll or change that we bring forward. But nice to go into it with that clarity. So yeah, it will not account for pets, herbivore, double income catches, or hunter rumors. There's the clarification. Okay, let's move on to the Gleaming Rapier. And the question here is, would the Gleaming Rapier essentially replace the Zammy Hasta for irons from a time point of view? And to follow on from there, how would you see this fitting in with the current progression? And do you have any concerns that it might be slightly overpowered as a weapon?
So I think in terms of just raw DPS, say you're hitting something with 0 defense, I don't think it's necessarily overpowered. It's exactly the same stats as a zombie axe. A zombie axe is pretty easy to get, all things considered. We're talking about the difference of fighting a boss. Yes, it's a lower Slayer level, like at 51, but armored zombies are pretty AFK for you to kill. They're multi-combat. You just group them all up. You can activate pre-melee and hit them one by one, or you can be more intensive and barrage them. It's not exactly a long grind. So this is the stab equivalent of that. But if you start looking at what do you stab in the game and what does the stab weapon meta sort of look like, stabs was quite unanimously across the board a very underserved combat style in our game. Like it always was. You had this weird like Hastas at tier 70, then Dragon Sword was at tier 60, and then the Fang comes along and just says, all of you are damn irrelevant everywhere.
Whoopsie.
I am the best stab thing in the game, and there is nothing you're going to do outside of like a Dragon Hunter lands weak to dragons. It is the pinnacle stab weapon. So we ended up in this weird position where like I don't think it's actually fair to ask if Hasta's irrelevant, because I don't think Hasta is relevant even in today's meta. Like it is basically just the weapon to go into TOA with, but even then, the new it's like only used until you get the new jewels, and the jewels are really good now. We've got the black gem. The Hasta is also a really weird weapon where it's not trying to be a stab weapon. It's used as a stab weapon because it was the best option until Fang, but it is just a multi-purpose weapon. Like it can slash, it can stab, it can crush. It's really versatile, and I remember a lot of people used to take that back into Chambers of Xeric in the day just because you were tight on inventory slots, and it was just really good to have that as an option. And I think it will still have some relevancy in the niche cases where content does require 4-tick, but even then, like, we are talking about like a tier 65 5-tick weapon. It's going to scale a bit less from strength than say a Hasta is anyway, so maybe at high-end setups the gap's going to be much lower. It's definitely not encroaching on things like a rapier either, like the Grazi rapier, because it is just that's just straight up a tier 80 weapon,
Mm-hmm.
So basically where this Gleaming Rapier is going to sit is it's probably going to be at that point in sort of like from the Iron Man perspective, because that's what the question was asking from. That same sort of point where you're thinking about a zombie axe, and it might open up some additional routes where players are thinking, well, I got to 51 Slayer and I've done some sailing and invested time into that, and instead of grinding a mob endlessly. I want to do something more engaging like a boss. And you'll still want both options. So maybe then you'll have the stab option for your Perilous Moons grind. You'll have the slash option for this. It'll also be a really good weapon for getting into raids until you do get those sort of aforementioned TOA jewels. Hasta's still very relevant. It's used in the upgrade path for the Dragon Hunter Lance. So Iron Men are going to need that anyway. And then, you know, even if they're not getting like a Fang and doing those kind of methods for Corp, obviously Zammy's Spear is still somewhat relevant there as being a weapon that's good for damaging Corp. So it's still going to have its place. I just don't think it's very fair to say, like, does it usurp Hasta when Hasta isn't really a DPS option? And I don't think it has been for a long time. But we have seen the feedback about the requirements potentially being a little on the low side. So we would like to mirror what the Zombie Axe does. We're going to require a 70 smithing requirement in order to fix it up. So we're going to change the design slightly so it drops as a tarnished rapier, and then have, just for flavor, have you take it to the polishing wheel in the Giant's Foundry and have you polish it up there to turn it into the Gleaming Rapier, and that will require 70 smithing. So that's the change we're looking to make. I think that should hopefully make it feel a bit more in that sort of grounded place, and hopefully any account that has 70 smithing, it's probably not too difficult for you to go out and do Giant's Foundry if that's a quest that you've put off for a while. So yeah, that's kind of the whole spiel on that. It's definitely a bit weird where stabs now being a bit more relevant, but that's hopefully a good thing. I know a lot of people were excited about it because stabs felt like an option that they just don't have a good option for. So.
Well, it sounds good to me. You did a bit of pretty good sales pitch there, Husky. I saw something come up in chat actually, which I thought was really interesting. And for those of you who are wondering in chat and spamming, is that we will try and take questions from chat. Typically, we do that when we've got through all the questions that we've already prepared. So if you haven't had something answered, continuing to spam it probably isn't going to get it answered any sooner. I'm really sorry. You can blame me if you like for that. It's entirely on me. But I did see a comment here from DLHG where it says it does feel a bit weird that the rapier. This rapier, considered tier 65, requires 51 Slayer, but the Dragon Sword, tier 60, requires 62 Slayer.
And I think the sailing requirement is still a factor there, and we're talking about fighting a boss instead of just killing a regular Slayer creature. So there are other differences. I do see the whole, like, I think it is one of those things where old school RuneScape players like to have their ducks in a row, let numbers only go in one way. But I think the thing that makes old school RuneScape so interesting as a game is that it's got these weird little inconsistencies where you're weighing up little pros and cons. It's not this polished rock, to use this metaphor I've used before. It has all these little weird sort of juts and edges that make it interesting.
It's
where
a
it's not trying to conform. So it's not just I fight higher level content, I get better level, higher weapon. It's they're like, especially just looking in the Slayer dynamic, it weighing up all these additional things. Which even just having the sailing requirement, something the community isn't talking about a lot. Boats are expensive. We haven't really touched on that a lot, and players aren't seeing that in the beta. But boats are costing you quite a lot. They're using a ton of planks. And we know how expensive planks can get at the higher level. So maybe getting 51 sailing with like an oak boat or a wood boat is going to be pretty brutal, like in some cases, for players who can't afford to get to teak mahogany and get the more expensive one. Brutal's probably a bit of an exaggeration there, but I think those are things where, like, that's a consideration from that Iron Man journey perspective, where I just haven't got a good revenue stream yet, so maybe I will go for a Dragon Sword, or maybe I will go do this other content first and then come back and weigh it up. Whereas another account that maybe did go really hard on getting money-making options, maybe did a lot of Giant's Foundry earlier, sailing becomes more of an approachable path. I think that's one of the cool things about the Iron Man game mode as a whole, because there are all these weird different things. I know, like, some players go, well, here's the actual correct efficient path, a boba. But people do play the game in their own way.
Boba. Yeah, no, that's fair. I just wanted to see what your take on it was, and I think that's actually a really well put together point. So thank you, Husky, and sorry for kind of just throwing that one in there. Last question about the rapier then. Are you concerned about introducing a 5-tick rapier when all current rapier weapon archetypes are 4-tick?
I was talking to Mod Rice actually about this just earlier today. And for those of you who don't know, Mod Rice likes swords. He's got a big sword that, like, at home that he plays with.
I've seen the video of him using it. It's insane. He's so
crazy.
Cool.
So he knows a thing or two about swords, and he talked about how rapiers, whilst they attack quite rapidly, it takes you a while to sort of recover again before your next attack, which makes a lot of sense in this regard. So whilst the attack animation perhaps is quite rapid, you might see that you need more time to really recover yourself and like find the right place to really like poke the enemy, right? Before you move on. So I think rapiers can still make sense as a 5-tick weapon.
I think there is that inconsistency there, though, which players will point to. I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to be team chat right now, you know, where, okay, well, why is the Grasdy Rapier 4-tick? And I mean, like, look at it for the design for what it was. You know, we were coming out with a series of tier 80 weapons that were 4-tick better than Whip, right? I think maybe if players come up with a suggestion, we can consider a different thematic for what does the 5-tick? Is it a heavy rapier and stuff? I remember looking at a few other options, like should we make it a spear instead? And then make it 5-tick and 2-handed, and then maybe you can give it the Dragon Defender stats on top of what it is to like balance it out more. But then you run into the problem of players like having an aggressive option, and spears are, you know, quite honestly terrible for having anything other than controlled or defensive. So,
if not a rapier,
why is everyone
then...
laughing? I'm missing something.
It's not you. It's chat. I'm just a child.
What would chat suggest would be a bigger sword option?
You don't want to ask them right now,
than a rapier. That would be suitable for 5-tick. I mean, I'm asking that seriously and joking at the same time.
The mega long sword.
5-tick.
The longer sword. Have you seen those? 3-handed sword, yeah. A great sword, broadsword. 2-handed stabby stab. I like that one.
I wish that longsword was like an option, like when you think about it, but then like longswords traditionally in our game are a slashing weapon, so it just kind of, people would complain about inconsistency on that side of it. Like, we don't actually have many stab options. Like Hasta's obviously one, but it's like not a Hasta, and again, you run into the attack style problem. Spears, as I mentioned, like I see Trident coming up, but then like we also have Tridents as magic weapons, so there's a weird thing there.
It's also the question.
I'd like us to think about it, because I do think the language being fairly consistent is helpful to players, right? You see longsword, you kind of know what it means. You see rapier, you know what it means. That's, I think, important. So
it is. Yeah, we have inconsistencies like that in game. That's not to say we should keep being inconsistent, but there's definitely like weapons that break that pattern, right? Like you have the twisted bow. That's not as fast as a willow bow, for example.
Yeah.
Touché.
Also, like, if we're at the point with a weapon, I know we discussed other feedback there, but if it's literally just, I want it to be themed slightly differently, but we're happy with where it sits in the meta, it's obviously a much lesser discussion point than some of the other stuff we were talking about, right?
Nice. Okay, well, I'm glad to be moving on from sword discussion. Thank you, though. That was thoroughly enjoyable. Will you consider adding Slayer XP to bounty tasks?
No. It's the short answer. We had a bit of a discussion around this, I think at several points during development, but it boils down to them being quite thematically different, and also we could see avenues of introducing Slayer to sailing in the future that would be a bit more interesting. I think the way that I think of Slayer is you get tasks, it's almost like a conservationism type thing, right? Like the amount of frogs in Lumbridge Swamp is too big. You need to like thin the population a bit. And a lot of the time, you have to like bring some sort of special weapon or tool, or there's some reason why you need a special set of skills to kill this creature, right? That is the identity of Slayer. But with sailing, and especially the bounty tasks, it's more about you're using your boat as a service to someone else. And they might say, look, these Krakens have been attacking my trade route and I don't like it. Can you go deal with it, please? That doesn't mean that you need like something special to kill the Krakens necessarily. They're just Krakens, or maybe they're like rays, I'm not sure, a turn, something like that. But I do feel like narratively they're quite different. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I'd like to leave the avenue for Slayer sailing open.
Yeah, that's the two things that sort of scream out to me. Is like, I know you didn't mention it, but to me, like a Slayer task has always been like, it's not just killing things indiscriminately. It's for a reason, targeted by a Slayer Master. You know, the Slayer Master decides what you kill. And I feel like that is thematically different from the local people who live in a port having problems with like a trade route, kind of, or just like, hey, can you kill these? They're being a bit of a nuisance. Which is more so what bounty tasks are. In general, the port task system is you've invested in having a boat, and you are using your boat as a service, whether that's for courier sort of services, bounty task sort of services, that kind of thing. Something we also didn't mention to players is that we're now giving coins as a reward, primarily from port tasks. We went back and forth on this with like drop table loot and stuff, but then we had a lot of overlap with shipwreck salvaging also having a drop table. So how do we do those and separate those? So we've just gone for, it's just GP that you get for them, which feels kind of more appropriate, and hopefully opens up some of those early game sailing sort of options. I have a bad boat and want to improve it so I can get GP from other stuff. It's not going to be way over the top. Like, I think pickpocketing is like a fair thing to compare to with thieving, is how much GP it comes into the game. So it's probably around that ballpark, but or maybe slightly more depending. We'll just see how that system plays out. That's a tangent. But anyway, on the whole Slayer thing, I feel like it is appropriate that it is the Slayer Master who assigns it. And I think we can do so much more with Slayer sailing at sea. Like, Slayer is always like, as you mentioned, what is this weird creature that you can only damage if you have the skills of a Slayer, right? You're knowledgeable enough to do it. And I think, what are the atrocities of the deep, right? That a Slayer at sea activity could like ask you to go and do. And we floated that in like refinements of like, what does like sea monster hunting look like in that. I'd like to lean more into that approach for a Slayer sailing hybrid, which is obviously something that we don't have time for launch and is a cool idea, and we could explore post-launch if people like that. So yeah, I agree, and that's kind of where I would go.
Nice. I really like the notion of slayling. That was cool to read in chat. And also, I got really distracted then because it just dawned on me. I'm like, which sick developer added dwarves and elves to the Slayer task list? You know, what did they do? I can understand monsters being annoying, but just genocide against the elves. But
Elena just went, yeah, there's too many dwarves and elves.
Yeah, literally. Like, okay. Anyway, moving on.
I didn't add it. Don't look at me.
I mean, with your theory behind how it works, but I'm not making that comparison. That was Husky.
You log into the game for the first time, and as soon as you spawn in Lumbridge, all the men and women have attack options. I don't know what that says, but we none of us think twice.
That's true.
Look, your character has the freedom to make those choices. No one's making you go kill those elves, but you're choosing to.
What
does that say about you?
Yeah.
I have a task streak. I'm not losing it. I have no points
We're
left.
so
Those elves are
weak-minded in
dying.
game, aren't we? We're just sheep. Okay. Can players still expect to engage in combat at sea with creatures using their boat?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I know this blog had a lot of stuff that was like, hey, here's Slayer, and I know some people were thinking, well, I wanted to hear about all the cool sailing creatures. And for the most part, we just consider those as part of the sailing skill. Those are kind of the surprises we're leaving on launch. There's a lot of cool things to engage in at sea. What their purposes are. There's not going to be anything that's, here's a new tier 65 crush weapon kind of levels of stuff, because obviously we need to pull that stuff, but things that are sort of more tied to ship upgrades or sailing resources, or like maybe new cannonballs and that kind of stuff. So there is absolutely going to be new creatures at sea on launch, whether those are attackable things that you're killing for their loot. As Kieren mentioned, I think it's just cool when the world has different things you can kill for different types of loot. Or whether there's some just more cute things. You cannot kill the dolphin calves. We will not allow it. You have the player agency to kill a man, but we will not let you kill a dolphin calf. So
I mean, that's just unjust now.
So yeah, there's going to be lots of stuff at sea, but it wasn't, with this blog, we were mostly looking at the things that needed to be pulled, as for like sort of more traditional content and things that you're, things that I guess already exist in the game, the sort of traditional weapons, skilling items that, we need to pull as part of reward space and that you might want to train sailing to go and acquire.
You conveniently didn't mention that you can kill like the dolphin calf's mom, though. You can do that if you want to.
If she wants to defend her offspring, that's on her. That's a life choice she gets to make.
You're going to be regretting this when the port masters have a problem with overpopulation of dolphins and they need to cool the calves.
They're too loud. They can't sleep at night.
Yeah, exactly. So that'll be the next release after the update goes out. Okay, all right. Are there any secondary training methods mentioned during sailing refinement, such as sea monster hunting, that are no longer in development? Oh, sorry, not any. It's meant to say, are the secondary training methods mentioned, such as sea monster hunting, no longer in development? Sorry.
Yeah, sailing's really hard, where in refinement, you kind of just try and think, what are all the things you could do? And a lot of it is just trying to say, sort of like, what is the skill's identity? What can it sort of reward you with? What can't it reward you with? And for those who have sort of been paying attention to all the blogs, they'll know that we're not releasing the entirety of the sea on launch. There are going to be areas of the sea that you're not going to be able to navigate over because you just don't have the facilities required to counteract those hazards. Sailing is such a big skill that even when you consider all the work with tech interfaces, getting boats to work, and then start going on to the training methods, and then start thinking about the islands and all the content, it's literally the project with like, you can come up with like 50 great ideas, and then you get challenged with what are the 10 great ideas you're going to have for launch. And even then, maybe it's not the best ideas that need to come in, but also what makes sense for it to be in as part of the skill on launch. Imagine if we said, we're going to have all these activities. Oh, but we forgot all the training methods because, you know, they're less exciting. So like obviously they need to be in, and then boat customization needs to be a thing, and crewmates were very important. So all these systems sort of get prioritized as extremely high. So yeah, I've got so many ideas that never made it into sailing, and everyone on the sailing team, and you know, I'm half as passionate as they are. I'm sure they have like a dozen more ideas than I have that didn't make it in. But that just means that there's so much more space for these in the future. Sailing isn't a skill that ends on launch and then, you know, is left for 3, 4, 5 years and eventually we come back to. It is going to be a skill that we look to continuously update, as with any other part of the game. And players have been used to black tiles in our world map before. Just imagine the areas of the sea like big black tiles, and you're just kind of wondering what the hell is going to be out there when we eventually get access to it.
Nice.
I think that's still to this day is like the magical draw of sailing for me. Like imagining all these islands that have, in theory, just always been there, right? You're only now getting access to them.
Imagine that, chat. Doesn't that sound cool? I think that sounds pretty cool. All right, we've got 9 minutes left, and we've got a bunch of questions, so I'm going to probably skip over a couple here. So if you're following along, sorry, team. But I'm going to move over to with Frost Dragons, Strykewyrms, and Aquanites being added, is there potential for even more RuneScape exclusive monsters to be added to Old School?
It seems like people quite like the reception of them so far. The way I think about it is, if RuneScape has done something awesome, then we feel like we can comfortably take that and make it feel old school, then there's no reason not to. It's always a balance to strike as well. You can't only take from RuneScape because eventually it won't feel old school anymore. So it needs a good mix of new and original. But we know that a lot of the creatures from RuneScape, especially back from like the RS2 era, like between when the backup of Old School was made and the current day of release, I suppose, can feel quite nostalgic for a lot of people. So tapping into that nostalgia, I think, can be quite powerful.
There's also a desire just in general across, this is more like a brand question, it's just making sure that the worlds and universes feel like they're sort of the same, I suppose, even if the games are not. So something that exists in one game should probably exist in the other, or like a close approximation of it. You know, it's the same sort of world with the same history and stuff. That doesn't mean everything. Obviously, we could take over some things. But I always love some of the crossover stuff. I think it's been really hype. I think some of the best examples of that aren't even us in content. I think audio has done some cool crossover things where, you know, their versions of A Masket's Vision and the Inferno soundtrack just go hard. So I think, like, the League's also, this is a bit of a tangent, the League's been really interested for that, I guess, where players have seen some of the content there and going, actually, this is kind of cool. I think, like, we can only win by taking the best of their content and then old schoolifying it, as well as adding our own cool original ideas. I think it just, if it's good, it's good, you know?
Yeah, I love that. It's like at the end of the day, you know, some things exist in RuneScape because it makes sense within the world of Gielinor, and we're also in the world of Gielinor. So even if it's not intentional, we could accidentally design a monster or feel like a monster that's really fitting to the game, just so happens to have also been added in RuneScape, and it's, you know, it's just part of the fantasy world that it's all built upon. Okay.
Sometimes, just real quick as well, because I saw someone mention a Raxor in chat. That's a really good example of where like narratively and thematically, we're taking something from RuneScape, but the fight itself is completely different to what it is like in RuneScape. And so that means that like we can still keep that parity with the game, like it feels like the same world, but it still feels old school.
Nice. That was a good point. Thank you, Elena. How did you come to the number that you did for bank spaces? Is there any chance that it could be increased even further?
Do they want the boring sort of tech answer, I guess? I guess it's kind of what they're asking for if they're like this. Because I think a lot of
We
people...
have 5 minutes, Husky.
A lot of people just, I guess, kind of go, why don't you just increase the number? Like, just type in the number of bank space, make bigger. Or why can't you just allocate more save space to the player, right? And just give us... It's none of that. The very simple problem is we need to have a piece of script that opens your bank and loads all the items in the bank in one game tick, and there is a finite amount of commands that we're allowed to run per cycle for game performance reasons. When we increased the bank spaces, we've had access to new engine commands that can do some of the stuff we used to do with lots of commands in a single command and optimize them further. And that's something that'll be constantly done. So it's mostly just a script optimization thing, more so than anything else. We don't want scripts to take far too much processing power, and especially something like the bank. Even if we said, oh, we'll just increase the amount of commands you can do per tick, the bank is like one of the most run scripts in the entire game. Like as far as like, you know, amount of players opening it every time they need to go and get gear, every time they're doing skilling training. So it's something that we can't just increase frivolously. But, you know, when we found ways to make efficiencies in space, obviously we're giving it back to the players as far as sailing. That said, clean your banks. It's really not that hard to find bank space. You don't need to hold on to all the stuff you're holding on to.
Oh man, I like keeping my frog tokens though. And yes, I've still not completed the full set, so I can still get them. I want to complete them. So essentially what Husky's saying is like, it's not like RAM. You can't just download more of it. Bank space is a little bit more technical than that. Now, in terms of the dragon sheets, will the drop rates be balanced so players don't spend too much time farming off the boat just to keep up with upgrades?
God, I don't know if I'm going to be slated for chat for saying this, but I feel like that was written by an Iron Man. Because any main account's just going to buy them. And I feel like the obvious answer is that, like, I don't know, maybe it's not obvious as well. This isn't just like, hey, I'm going to have a Dragon Axe, and it's a fairly, like, small thing for me to sort of grind for and own, and now I can do the most efficient stuff. It's been very much in our sailing design goals for high-level boats to be expensive. You should see someone with a rosewood boat and go, Jesus Christ, at that cost per plank and that number of planks, and they needed to get all these dragon sheets for the high-level facilities. Damn, that guy's loaded. And that'll be the feeling with those highest level boats. And none of the content on launch will require these high-level boats. But it should hopefully just be a very good way for players to sort of express wealth. Having that, like, really decked-out baller ship should be expensive. As a result, we probably don't want to drop 20 dragon sheets per Slayer task, right? We have to get to the point where there has to be some amount of like limitation on those resources coming into the game. So yes, if you're an account that's grinding out all your dragon sheets for yourself, it's probably going to take quite a while because that should be quite a large investment. And for accounts that don't want to do that, we'll expect to fork out because we want these things to be expensive. And I think that's good in general for the game. You know, we keep getting complaints about, oh, we really want this creature to be relevant, this drop table to be valuable and stuff. And obviously things will be super inflated on sailing launch because that's just the thing when resources are limited. But hopefully that means that these tasks which players are saying, you know, Strykewyrms and Frost Dragons, they're, you know, why am I doing those? Well, when you've got a chance to hit a dragon sheet and make a lot of money off it, that's a pretty damn good reason to do that task. So, yeah, I don't have any sympathies here. And to be honest, I'm that Iron Man who just kind of says the game mode's difficult, but I'm the Giga Chad who'll sit there and grind it for hours and weeks sometimes. You know, I didn't care that I had to grind 12,000 demons for my Radiant Oath play. I just sat there and grinded the contracts because that's what an Iron Man account does. So, yeah, I know that's controversial, but, like, to me, that's just the game mode. So, but don't feel like you need to. Like, you can absolutely complete all of sailing content with Camphor logs, probably, maybe even Mahogany logs. Like, you're not going to need to go Rosewood and Dragon. So
I want a boat upgrade to feel meaningful. If you don't have to work for it, it doesn't feel meaningful. Like, having top boat features should feel rewarding.
Absolutely.
Fair points. You got quite a lot of bastes in the chat actually, which is surprising. I think like we've done something with them today. Everyone's being very friendly, so thank you everyone, much appreciated, and those of you as well. You know, chatting amongst yourselves. It's been lovely to read alongside, listening to the mods talking today. Last question then, in regards to dragon sheets, right? We've just heard your take on in terms of farming them. How about how attainable they will be from different sources? You know, will they be reliably attainable from multiple PVM and selling activities and not just the monsters in the blog, or something else?
Yes, but we're probably not going to disclose it on launch. Those are the things that are non-sailing that are going to have it, and we're still working through the last drop tables, and there might be dragon sheets from other sources. The more sources you add for an item, though, the harder it is to balance all the resource streams. So there's very much a risk that we could overdo it if we're not careful, especially because like boat combat isn't something that, even with all our testing internally, I'm absolutely sure that like there's going to be revelations for me a week or two in when I see some of the metas people are doing, and I'm, oh yeah, that's how we abuse this and get 3 times the kills per hour. You know, that's going to be the stuff that like is going to be fun for players to figure out. So yeah, there might be dragon sheets from other sources, so it's not just these 2 that you do off boat, but like these are probably what we consider to be the main ones currently. Sorry, Elena, I think I cut you off.
No, I think you covered everything.
Awesome. Okay, well, that leads us to the end of today's live stream. Thank you to Kieren, Husky, and Elena for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, even though I fumbled a little bit at the start and got very distracted by chat because I'm too immature to be here. But it was very fun. I hope those of you watching at home had a enjoyable time as well. Thank you for joining and watching us. A few announcements just quickly to wrap up with. ! Game update. Last week's game update brought in the rest of the Pol 85 changes. So the bridge near the mausoleum can now be repaired to create a shortcut, as well as Harmony Island herb patches now guaranteeing healthy herbs and more. Check that out. Game update coming out tomorrow as well. Look forward to that one. News post will be going at a typical time in the morning. In terms of sailing and what we've talked about so far, ! blog for that one. If you want to read more about Frost Dragons, Slayer creatures, unique drops and more. Get ready because the poll will be open for voting soon, but there will be an updated blog going out before that will talk about all the changes that we've kind of talked about in the stream today, as well as some more that we haven't had a chance to go over into detail. So make sure you refamiliarize yourself with those. We've been looking for all your feedback. The team have been doing as much as they can to address all of those that will still fit with the design goals and intentions in mind, so on and so forth. If you can't be bothered to read, I don't blame you. There is a video that you can watch instead. ! Video for that one. No Monkey and Skritic helped us with it. They did a fantastic job. Wonderful video. So go check that out. And then finally, ! Sailing Discord if you want to stay up to date in terms of sailing news, conversation. We're also going to be hosting a stage call on Discord later this week. I believe it's going to be on Thursday. We'll be posting out on socials for the exact times and stuff for that. So if you want to have a little bit more of an intimate time in terms of conversation with us, you know, the chance to actually potentially even join in and speak to us over the microphones, then that is going to be the place to be. So make sure you join the Discord so that you can get involved in that. Otherwise, just want to say thank you again to everyone. Thank you to the production team, and anything that you guys want to say before we wrap up?
I want to like be a little bit sentimental, super quick. I think we said so in the blog as well, but this is our final sailing poll. It's almost here, guys. We're almost there. So I just want to say it's been a crazy journey, and I hope you enjoyed the launch. We'll talk more before that, but you know, get ready.
Get out of my head, Elena. I was about to be sentimental too. It's awesome. Like, there's been so much passion and creativity, and we might not have got this right at every single step of the way. And I'm sure we as players even are going to review our own content in a different light in launch and want to make changes. And, you know, we'll go through all that post-launch feedback and stuff. But it's just happening, and it's just... There's an amount where I'm like, I'm going to think back when I'm like 70 and think, God, I spent like 2 years of my life, maybe a bit more, creating this for our players. So, and hopefully the player reception is going to be good. We always hope it's going to be good, and hopefully I'll say that was a meaningful use of my time on this earth. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
The team's been awesome. Community's been awesome. We've obviously had our up and downs, and it's been a very controversial project at times, but like, I wouldn't have had it any other way. Our community's passionate because they love and care about the game, and we also love and care about the game.
This is what makes us old school RuneScape. It's such a fundamental part of how this game operates, right? The blogs, the feedback loops with the players, everything about it. That's what makes it special, keeps us on the right track, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited with this stuff to finally be in the game and for players to properly play it for the first time.
First new skill. Who'd have thought it? It's coming.
I legit have booked off like the month after. Like, it's just going to be such like a detox period for me to just go and reset after such a long project.
Yeah, you say that. You're just going to be skilling.
99, bro.
Yeah, that's literally what you're going to do. You're just going to be smashing it out.
I will be 99 sailing when I return to work. I will.
Imagine the controversy. Mod Husky gets the first 99 in the game.
No.
You're going to do sort of front pager.
I play this game for a lot of hours, but I am not these Giga Chads that can get to 99. Even if I didn't sleep until the first 99 cape, I still wouldn't be close, even with all my insider knowledge.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Dragon Trophy every league without fail. I see you.
Yeah, well, that's just time played. Yeah. That's not efficiency.
Okay. Well, we all appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for all of the work that you've put onto it. I'm extremely excited for it. I hope the community are too. It does seem like it's trending that way now. But yeah, before we carry on rambling and get too emotional, you make me cry, we're going to end it here. And we will see you either on Thursday for the Discord stage call or whenever the next live stream is. Keep an eye on our socials for it. Thank you, everyone. You've been an absolute pleasure. Goodbye for now.